Hello everyone, and welcome to another Labbing It tutorial. This time we're going to focus on HPE Virtual Storage Appliance. This appliance is going to run in our lab and be the storage provider to our VMware environment. So we don't have any VMware servers or any SXI servers at this stage. So we're going to start with this the implementation of this VSA, and then once it's all up and configured, we'll go ahead and install ESXi. We'll install just the one server to start with, and then we'll connect our storage appliance up to it through iSCSI. Just a bit of an overview just on where we're at with the network. You can see now we've got a couple new additions to where we've been. So we've configured our pfSense, we've configured a domain controller, we've got a client PC, we've got a Veeam backup server, which is currently backing up our domain controller. We've got to configure it to back up our newly created Exchange 2010 server. And now we've got two additional components to our environment. So this is what we're going to focus on right now. So that's the Mel VSA 1. It's going to have two network interfaces, one for management access and one for the iSCSI network. And this iSCSI network will link in with the iSCSI network of our ESX host. So let's get started in our lab. Okay, so we already have the software available to us. So I've gone ahead, logged onto the HPE website and have downloaded the StoreVirtual VSA software. So it's free to download. I think it's just in trial mode, but you can use it for as long as you like, as long as you keep it under a terabyte in size. I think anything over that will initiate license activation requirements. So if you keep it under a terabyte, then you should be okay. Let's just check out here. This is where I've downloaded. So it's called the HPE StoreVirtual. I've downloaded version 12.8. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is actually a discontinued product. 12.8 came out somewhere in 2018, 2019. I don't think there's been any additional updates since then, so I don't think HPE are continuing with this product, but nonetheless it's still available and accessible for us to use in my example, for a lab environment. Now, out of the box, this uses an OVF file for installation, and typically you would be installing this in a vSphere environment to present this virtualized storage to your network. Obviously, we're using VMware Workstation, not the full-blown vSphere environment. So out of the box, now in older versions of VMware Workstation, I never had any issues installing this. And what we get now is if I try to import this OVF file, I'm met with a few error messages. I think this is one of many. So if I tried to fix this one, I'll receive further others. So I've had a few little issues getting it up and running natively through the OVF file. So just for reference, OVF files are just packaged VMware products that you can export and import into other environments with relative ease. It's almost like, in some ways, just creating a bit of a template, if you like, and then you export the template to an OVF, and then you can import it into another VMware environment by importing the OVF, and it pretty much just configures everything in the VMware environment for you automatically. But in our case, that's not working, so this is what I've had to do to get it up and running. So I've gone and created a folder on my lab server, VSA1. So if I go back here, sorry, not Exchange, if I go back into HPE And if I just grab the virtual disk, I'll just do a copy of the virtual disk and head back to where I'm going to run this virtual machine from. So this is Mel VSA1. I'll call it VSA1 just in case we end up putting a second or third one in later down. So later down the track. So that's the virtual machine disk. I'll just minimize that for now. Now all I do is I come into here and I create a custom virtual machine. Now, what I've done in the past, I've just brought the version down. So when this last worked, it was version 7, I believe, of VMware Workstation, where I could import these OVF files. But for some reason, I think it only just works with this compatibility, or at least I get it up and running in this compatibility, and then we can upgrade it later. So if I go next, I'll install the operating system later because I won't actually be installing anything. The operating system version, when it used to work, it always used to say CentOS version 5 and earlier 64-bit. So I just keep it at that version. I'll call it Mel VSA, and it's located on my E drive. Is that correct? Yep. Mel VSA1 on my E drive. Going next, it's going to give me a warning saying that it can actually see a virtual disk in there, which is okay because we know about it. I configure it with 2 processors, and I give it 4 gigs of memory. 4096. I get 4096 by multiplying 4 by 1024. 4096. I just leave that for now. I'll change the networking shortly because I need to add an additional adapter. And I've always selected this option, Para Virtualize SCSI, and left it at SCSI. And I use an existing disk, and then I just browse to that disk that we placed in our E drive. So it's this disk here. Select virtual disk is compatible with workstation. That is because I've actually already upgraded it. So we're gonna have to go back. Okay, it's because I've already tested it and I've actually converted it up to 16.2. But if this is the first time you've done it, you've downloaded that software, use 6.5 to 7.x first, and then once you're finished, you'll get an option, set it all up, and then you'll get an option there will be an option to upgrade the virtual machine hardware compatibility, and then you can, it's okay to go and convert it afterwards. So we'll just quickly go through this. Apologies for that. I've already went and converted this disk a little while ago. Paralyze, I keep saying paralyze, para-virtualized SCSI, existing disk, there it is there. And I just hit the convert button. If it's saying that I need to convert, I always convert. And I customize the hardware. Definitely make sure you get rid of the CD-ROM because this software will look at it and think that's a drive that we might be able to use, and it gets stuck trying to initialize the disks. We don't need USB controllers, we don't need sound cards, and we don't need a printer. This is pretty much all we need, except actually we need an additional network adapter. They both adapters go on the main LAN segment, but Ethernet 1, so this will be Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1 will be on an iSCSI network. So if I just go back to a network diagram there, you can see that the iSCSI network is 11.0 network. The management, which is Ethernet 0, is the 10.0 network. And hit close and OK, and hit finished. And it should pop up here. Okay, now the next thing to do is you need to take a snapshot. So the current disk is not in a state that is going to easily allow us to um, edit the actual physical disk. So just create a snapshot. This is just temporary until we're up and running, and then we can delete the snapshot, and then everything starts to work as we want it to. So let's power on the virtual storage appliance from HPE. This will just take a small moment. And we're ready to go. So let's hit start. So it's just saying at the top there, type in start and hit enter to the login prompt. So out of the box, there's no usernames or passwords. We go straight into the settings for this virtual storage appliance. And the only thing we really really need to configure here is just the network adapters. So we just go back again to our diagram. Management is 10.13 and iSCSI is 11.13. So let's go and configure that. So the host name is melvsa1.jtairlines.internal. We'll put a DNSA record into to cover us off from a DNS point of view. And the IP address 192.168.10.13. So again, this is the management IP. 24-bit network, gateway of 10.1. Hit OK. And OK again. And OK again. So that's Ethernet 0 and then Ethernet 1. Hostname remains the same. We're just changing the IP address here, so it's 11.13. Now this is the iSCSI network. We don't need to present any gateways. Obviously, it can cause a conflict with multiple gateways, so we remove that. So everything on the iSCSI network will be on the same network. So no gateway required. And that's it. We are done. We don't need to change any settings here. So just log out. Still, we don't have any, we haven't put any security or anything on this appliance. We will do that through the centralized management console, which we'll do now. Okay. So when you download the VSA software from the HPE website, there will also be an option. There's actually many downloads. You just need to filter through to the right ones. You're after the vSphere storage appliance, and there's also a an installation for the centralized management console. So I've already just placed this installation on the admin share, and I've actually got an slightly older version. So 651 is the one that I want to use, which I think I've applied today. Yep, I downloaded that this morning. So let's run that as administrator. So we don't manage the storage from the VCA directly, so we manage the storage from this console. You obviously can install this console on any machine that's got network access to the actual physical VSA. And there's really nothing much in the setup here. It's pretty much next, next, next all the way through, except the license agreement. I always go with typical. I'm happy with the installation location. And yep, we'll open it up. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. And done. and the management console should just automatically load up, which it is. And let's give it a chance to finish loading. Let's close that for a second. Dialog box there, it's just telling me I think there might be, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of patches that we can apply, which we'll do probably a bit later on. Getting started, find systems, it's found this system, so let's go add. No, oh, 10.15, oh, that's not, that might have been when I was testing this out. Let's do a find and see if it finds anything through a broadcast check. No. All right. So we'll punch in the IP address, which is 192.168.10.13. There we go. So it's found our HPE StoreVirtual VSA. Just click close. Now we've got the available system. So there's a couple of steps here to get this configured. The first thing that I like to do you've got to log in to view. Is just go down to network. So out of the box, I find sometimes the Ethernet 0 and Ethernet 1 are on the same network. It actually might be the case that they're on separate. Sorry, not the Ethernet 0 and 1. The iSCSI, what it's expecting the iSCSI network to be is on Ethernet 0. And we want iSCSI interface to be Ethernet 1. So we just need to change that up quickly. Select the interface, Ethernet 1. So the management interface is on 0, the iSCSI interface on 1. And for those that might be familiar with the centralized management console, you've got the left-hand OS interface, so the old P4000 storage systems that used to roam around frequently in a lot of different organizations. We don't need to configure that. Okay, so that's all good. So what we need to do is add to our storage appliance to a management group. I just call it JT Airlines. Go next. Right. Let's go cancel for one moment. Let us shut this down. So we've done one of two things. We've actually configured the virtual machine as we want it, but we don't actually have any storage for our VMware environment. So we need to actually provide a disk. So what I'll do, can I shut this down from here? Power off or reboot? Power off. Let's do it straight away. So we'll go OK. A little bit annoying. I remember some things that we need to do, and I'll forget other things that we need to do. Okay, so VSA is offline. So I'll just add that hard disk, iSCSI, add a new virtual disk. I'll just make it 500 gig. Store virtual disk as a single file. Actually, I'll make it 650. A little reason to that we'll deal with a bit later on. And go OK. Power back on. What I do like about these this virtual storage appliance, it's quite quick. Boots up reasonably at a reasonable pace. Get back into it. Now that we've rebooted the VSA, we'll shut it down. Now it goes missing from our console. The console will do periodic scans, waiting for it to come back up. Still waiting. Making a liar of me now. There we go. Let's do a find system test. Okay. add to new management group. And we'll call this JT Airlines. Okay, next. Just going to sort out the RAID. So it's just one disk, obviously. In this environment, in a real life environment, you probably have 20, 30 disks, and you might carve that up in a number of ways. But for us, it's just the one disk, so it's going to be like a RAID 0 essentially. Okay, so this is where we just provide a little bit of security to this console. So I'll just give it the username administrator, description administrator, and just provide a password. Don't forget it. I'm not sure what the recovery process is. I suspect you'd have to do something through the actual console of the storage appliance. NTP server. I'll just nominate my domain controller. DNS name. So this is Mel VSA. So this is actually for the entire organization. So I won't limit it to VSA 1. It's just be mel-VSA. The suffix jtairlines.internal and 192.168.10.10. Oops. Good thing you picked up on my error. I do have an Exchange server on the 10.12 network. mel-VSA at jtairlines.com, and let's send those details for now to the administrator at jtairlines.com. So we've got our Exchange server up and running, so we can send the administrator account some information around critical errors, warnings, and some informational details about our storage appliance. Now it's going to ask us to put this into a cluster, and it never works straight up. So you'll just see, I'll call this Melbourne cluster. So we provide a virtual IP. So depending on how many appliances we have in this cluster, we can target all those appliances by this single IP. So you don't have to, you can still target this appliance by the IP address, the iSCSI IP address of 11.13. But it is much better to use the virtual IP address. And you'll see this in action when we configure our iSCSI servers. But we're going to have to do this again. I'll just skip the volume creation. So it's trying to do the management group creation and the appliance and the cluster creation all at once. And I've never seen both of these work in a row. Not sure if that's just because I'm running it in a lab environment or not. I'll usually get presented with some sort of DNS error. Could make a liar of me again. No, here we go. So the cluster didn't work. That's okay. So we've got the JT Airlines management group, and here are our appliances, just the one. And what we need to do now is just add to the cluster. So we just go through this configuration again. Melbourne cluster, plug in the virtual IP again of 192.168.11. So I just use 11.50. It's just a nice easy number to remember. Obviously it can be anything on your 11 network. You may in your own lab, I know I certainly do in mine. I create a little Excel spreadsheet with a table of IP addresses in the different networks. As this lab grows out, there's going to be many different IP addresses roaming around, many servers and so forth, so it might be ideal to just keep a tabs on things. So 11.50, I'll just skip the volume creation. I'll just let it do the cluster first, which now it's done. And now we have our storage appliance, but we don't have any volumes. So I'll create 2 volumes. We might call this, say, gold tier. And actually what we'll do is Melbourne gold. I'll just call it Melbourne gold. Melbourne gold tier. Give this 300 gig, and I'll assign the thin provision. So because it's a lab environment, I don't want to just consume storage for no reason. I'll just thin provision. It does mean things run a little bit slower, but that's okay. And that's one volume set up. So these are the volumes that we will present to VMware, so that we can run up our virtual machines in our VMware environment. And we'll call this Mel Silver, for instance. I don't have any actual tiering of disks. They're all it's just one virtual disk running on my NVMe storage, and we'll make this 350 gig. And obviously back to thin provisioning again, and that is it. There's a little bit more configuration to come in here before we can present to iSCSI. We'll actually have to give permissions to our iSCSI host to actually access the storage. So that's done through here. So obviously we use the iSCSI initiator node names to make that happen. We'll see that in a later video. But for now, I think we've met all the tasks. We've installed the appliance and configured it through the centralized management console. We've set up SMTP. Let's just have a quick check in Outlook and see if we've received anything. Doesn't look like it. Chances are that maybe it hasn't needed to send anything. Let's have a quick look. It hasn't saved. So when we went to create that management group, it didn't save these tasks. So let me try this again. 192.168.10.12. The sender is melvsa@jtairlines.com. And the recipient can be administrator at vSphere. That's how often I use that sign-in address. We will use administrator at vSphere.local in coming videos. Click OK. Can we do an apply and test? Applied email. Sure if it's working. Let's just double check. Go in here and have a look. Don't think we need to. I think the receive connectors on Exchange are set to receive from anybody. Apply email settings. Mel VSA at 10.12. That's definitely our Exchange. Mel Exchange 2010 is 10.12. Apply and test. Apply email settings. Am I missing something? I hit apply, then it says apply email settings. That looks normal to me. Apply email settings. I think I'm missing something, aren't I? Can't seem to get out of this box. 192.168.10.12, port 25, Mel VSA at jtairlines.com, sending through to here. Apply email settings. Something's not quite obvious to me. I think it. 192.168.10.12. Mel VSA, jtairlines.com. Go apply. Accepting complete. Apply email settings. It's not letting go on Oh, that is there some sort of box that I'm not seeing? If I just expand that out a bit. No, don't think so. If I it's this one. Email settings. Sender address. Going around in a bit of a loop here. I'm not going to spend too much time. I'll have to look at that offline. Actually, I wonder if it's just a matter of logging out and log back in. Have another quick look. Obviously, you don't need to watch the rest of this video. I am just going to quickly see if I can sort this out, because I know I've definitely had mail working before. Logging into our system. Oh, actually, there is one bit we probably do need to do, and just to fix off the storage appliance and remove that snapshot. So we'll do that. Just give this one more go. Edit email. 192.168. I'm pretty sure I normally use IP address. I think sometimes it struggles with DNS for some reason. Administrator at vSphere. Oh, here we go. Man, keep doing it all the time. airlines.com. Appliances. Oh, there we go. Administrator at nearly. Test. Let's see. Email sent. Let's check. Yep. Beautiful. Lots of emails. They'll come through on a regular basis. So that's really good. So that's working. And just as a quick tutorial, which I did show before about shutting it down, you can either shut down one appliance at a time. So I'm going to need to shut this down just to fix up that snapshotting, that snapshot creation that I made at the beginning. So yes, we can shut down the appliance, or we can come up here and shut down the management group. So if we had a whole heap of appliances that we might want to shut down at once, you can just shut down the management group. I think you can shut down the. Can we shut down the cluster? No. So it's either at the appliance or at the management group. So I go shut down group, shut down group. And this VSA up the top here should power off. Let's give it a few more moments. Done. And I just come into here. Now, I think this will throw an error because it's the virtual disk that we're using. I think it's got some sort of protection on it. But the fact that we're consolidating a snapshot disk into the original disk seems to resolve this issue. I've done this many times and it's fine, and it works just fine afterwards. So I just delete the snapshot. You get this error, but the snapshot's gone, and there's no more issues running this virtual machine. So just power it back on, and soon enough we'll log in and away way it goes. It is a little bit of a workaround because obviously there's some sort of compatibility issue with the old StoreVirtual appliance and newer versions of VMware Workstation. What you can do if you don't want to go through this mess again, if you want to, once you've got it up and running, I would urge you to take another snapshot and do a make a template, and then you can save it offline, and then you don't have to go through this mucking around over and over and over. Mind you, it didn't take us that long to set this up anyway. So so this VM will finish booting up. It will represent itself. There we go. And if I come in here and do another find systems, it will automatically detect it eventually. Just to speed things up. And also sometimes if you, after a reboot, if you try to log in straight away, you might get an access error message. Not always. You might say username or password invalid. Don't be stressed. It's just it takes a little while sometimes for the VSA to properly fully boot up. And if you still struggle to log in from here, what you can also do is if you just hit start here again, now you will be requested to log in. And sometimes I find just logging in here will solve the problem from the console. Mind you, once it's all up and running, you probably don't have to log into the console too often unless you're making some sort of infrastructure change. But once it's all connected up to your vSphere environment, there's not much else you have to worry about. But as you can see there, it's taking a bit of time to log in from here as well. Definitely not an issue. It's just it's taking a bit of time for it to boot up. Oh, there we go. It's logged in now. So I suspect you should be able to log in. It's definitely removed the login, so I would say this management group should start opening up. There we go. And we're in business. So that's the virtual storage appliance from HPE setup. Our next video we'll prepare an iSCSI host and connect that up. Thanks for watching.